everyone, welcome back to Mrs. J's Cooking. Today we're gonna make some banana bread. I had some bananas that got a little ripe, and don't throw them out because even though they look scary, they're actually perfect for banana bread. So we're gonna make 1 loaf of banana bread today. Let's get started. All right, so before I get started, I do need to preheat my oven, 350 degrees. Next, what we need to do is grease a bread pan. So I took some butter down along the inside. I don't put it up along the sides. You might do that, but I don't do that because I want my bread to rise up, and I can always run the knife around the edges. So I have that ready to go and get started. We also need some of our ingredients prepped. You need your butter to be softened. You really shouldn't do this in the microwave because it can make the fat separate from the other parts of the butter that you need. And once they separate, they don't really get back together. So we have a half a cup of butter sitting out at room temperature, 3 bananas, flour, vanilla, salt, baking soda. All of these ingredients we're going to bring together. I also need a little bit of lemon. Some other things I need to get ready are the bananas. Now the bananas, like I mentioned before, they're very ripe. So we do need to peel them and smash them. So I'm gonna go ahead, peel these bananas. Now if you have bananas that are overripe, and you don't have time to use them right away, something you can do is peel them and put them in freezer bags and place them in the freezer. Don't put them in the freezer with the peels on because they are very difficult to peel after that. But we're just gonna peel these, and some people throw them out when they get like this. They're actually perfect for banana bread, for banana cake. You could even use them for smoothies. But like I said, they freeze really well. Just take them out of the peels. It's so much easier to use those in your recipes. So I'm just using 3 bananas. At this point, what we're going to need to do is smash them. So now that we need to mash our bananas, we have them all peeled and right in our bowl. You can use a fork, you can use a spoon. I'm gonna actually use a pastry blender because it's just so much easier to smash the bananas. Once they're mashed, I'm gonna actually add just a tiny bit of lemon juice to keep them from oxidizing. This will help so you don't have any big purple chunks in your banana bread. Look how fast that happens. Now, if you wanna make banana bread and you just have the regular bananas, you don't have any that are overripe, that's okay, go ahead and use those. Your bread just won't have quite as much of a sweet flavor to it, but you can still use it. Just use your fork or pastry blender and smash them up really well first. I'm gonna use my rubber scraper here and get them unstuck from the pastry blender. These are really handy, not just for cutting in the fat in recipes like pie crust or making crumble toppings, but you can see I used it for this. If you have a potato masher, that would work too. All right, so I have a little bit of lemon. I'm just gonna squirt a little bit of this lemon juice right in here, not too much, but just enough to cut the oxidization. And I will just stir this around with my rubber scraper. If you don't have any lemon juice on hand, you could use a tiny bit of vinegar. That would work too. Just something acidic that can cut the oxidization. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this aside, and we're gonna move on to some of our other ingredients. Next, you're gonna cream together your butter and sugar. I'm going to get 1 cup of sugar and a half a cup of butter. The butter needs to be shortened. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in my KitchenAid mixer bowl, but if you just wanna mix it by hand, you could just put it in a regular bowl. So 1 cup of sugar, and a half a cup of butter, which just happens to be a stick of butter. This, like I said, needs to be softened, not melted, because you want it to come together with the sugar just right in the recipe. And if it's melted, it can really affect the texture of your recipe. You don't want it to completely melt until it's actually in the oven. That way you have those nice air pockets and it helps with the fluffiness of your banana bread. Something else you can do with the label, I already greased the pan, but you can actually use this to grease your bread pan. Get any of that excess butter that's on there so you're not wasting it. Now that we have the butter and sugar cream together, we need to sift together some of the other ingredients. We have the structure of the recipe, that is the flour. So I'm gonna get our 1.5 cups of flour, and we're just gonna put this in a separate bowl. That way we can blend these other ingredients together. So there is my 1/2 cup, and here is the 1 cup. Now this recipe actually does not call for any milk. A lot of my banana bread recipes do, but this one's a little bit different. It only makes 1 loaf of bread, and it uses a little bit less ingredients. Just trying to make sure I'm not using too much right now because we don't have a lot of ingredients available. So I have 1.5 cups of flour in here. Next, I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Baking soda is our leavening agent in the recipe. So that's what's going to make our bread rise. And if you remember from class, that is going to react with the acids in the recipe that are going to activate it, and it's going to form that carbon dioxide that makes it bubble and rise up whenever it's in the oven. So 1 teaspoon of baking soda. I need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to just use one of my other containers here. You don't ever want to measure this over your recipe, because if you have too much salt in there, you can't take it back out, and we do not want to waste our ingredients. So I am leveling that off. So 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'll sprinkle that around and just mix these all together, because we're going to add this to our other ingredients gradually. All right, that looks perfect. So I will set this aside. Remember, I have my oven preheated, it's ready to go, my pan's ready to go. Next, what we need to add is our eggs. So let's see here. In the bowl where we have our butter and sugar creamed, I'm gonna set that here. I have a bowl with my bananas, and next I need to crack 2 eggs. So make sure when you're doing this, you're cracking them in a separate container. We do not want to get any shells into our recipe. So there's 1, and I'll get the other one done here. Shell free, that's good. So we'll throw this away. Eggshells can go right in the trash, or if you have a compost pile, shells are really good in there to add into the soil to get nutrients back in. I am actually going to put them over because I'm gonna put some little seedlings in these. I'm gonna add my 2 eggs into the recipe. We're gonna add our bananas. One teaspoon of vanilla extract. Once your ingredients are brought together, gradually add your flour mixture. Now all of our ingredients are combined. You want to make sure you don't over mix this. That is important because it can make your bread tough. I am just running my rubber scraper along here. I want to make sure I have all the flour, and it's time to actually put it into our bread pan. So let's get this in here. We can bake it in the oven. My oven is already preheated. Make sure you get all of it out of there. This is gonna be so good. Just gonna smooth the top off of this here a little bit. Try to get any of that leftover batter. So one last thing that I want to add to my bread before I put it in the oven is some mini chocolate chips. Now you don't need them in there. This is just something I want to add, and I'm only going to add a little bit of chocolate chips. I'm just going to sprinkle some along the top and use my rubber scraper to press them down. If you wanted to, you could fold this right into the recipe before you actually add it into your bread pan, but to be honest, I forgot. So I'm just going to swirl this in. I used a little, probably about 1/4 of a cup It just depends how much chocolate you want it. And like I said, this does not need it at all. It is delicious without it, but I just kind of want some chocolate. So we're gonna go ahead, swirl this into our loaf pan here. Can't believe I forgot it. That happens. So now we're gonna put it back in the oven. My banana bread is ready to go into the oven. It's gonna go into the oven for 55 minutes. Alexa, set a timer for 55 minutes.
55 minutes, starting now.